full-time actor now.
Mm-hmm.
And then he doesn't make it. But
another big plot point that we forgot is, so it ends up being that all these other countries have their own. I think it's once a year they have their own sacrifices, and each one of them from all the other countries have failed.
Yeah.
So it's all resting on.
It was all up to Tokyo and United States, or Japan and the United States to basically get it done.
And Tokyo, which is it's basically going on at the same time. It's a bunch of little girls and a spirit, and they conquer the spirit.
Yeah.
And they turn it into a frog or whatever. And everyone gets pissed about that, and then
they're like, "Oh shit!"
So then it's
only up to us.
Yeah, it's really only up to the U.S.
Yeah.
So then the pressure is on.
Yeah, and then so they get back into the cabin. I mean, into the RV, and Holden and Dana are like, "Okay, let's go." You know, we're gonna go to the cabin. You know, we'll be safe there until later. And Dana's like, "No, we're not." She's like, "Marty was right. It's all." She's like, "We're puppets," and she's kind of catching on a little bit. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I need your head in the game, you know." He's like, "I need you with me. We're gonna be okay." And then he gets that knife straight through the neck, and one of the zombies snuck into the RV while they were in the cellar at some point. And then that's when they crash into the river or the lake. And Dana swims back up, and then she gets to the dock, and she's climbing to the dock, and everyone's celebrating down below because they're like, "Oh yeah!" They're like
everybody's dead except for the virgin, who doesn't have to die.
Yeah, she doesn't have to die. It's basically up to fate if she can survive or not. And everyone's having a party. They're all popping bottles and drinking, and then that's when the huge giant Buckner zombie guy is there with her again at the
he just starts
the dog starts beating the shit out of her
on the
and they're all partying, and then there's these big screens in front of them, and she's getting her ass whooped.
He's like, "Oh, I feel so bad for her. I really want her to pull through." And he's just like, "Lady tequila." He just gets sidetracked to something else.
And it gets to the point where this giant zombie guy is about to kill her with his bear trap chain thing, and he starts swinging it, and then it gets hooked on something, and then it's like, what the fuck? And then the camera kind of backs out, and it's hooked on Marty's bong that he's been holding this whole time, his epic weapon. And then he hits the zombie guy in the head, and then knocks him into the water, and then they take off. And that's when everyone starts downstairs, basically, starts freaking out. They're like, "How the hell is he alive?"
Because basically the upstairs, which I think ends up being the director, which we meet later, calls him on the phone, and they're like, "Yeah, you dummies, there's still somebody alive." And then he's like, "Oh, well, which one is it? Because I thought everybody was dead." And it ends up being Marty.
Yeah.
And they basically, the conclusion of the film goes insane, and they find, it turns out that Marty has stumbled upon this secret elevator.
Yeah.
Where you can go down into this kind
Basically the facility.
Yeah, of where everything is ran from. And he's like, I've already been in the elevator. There's no controls in there, but I can manipulate the.
It's like the maintenance hatch.
The wires and stuff, and I'm pretty sure I can get it to go down. And because they were like, well, they had sent some monsters up through that to come and get us.
Yeah.
So then they do the reverse. They go back down, and we meet all these kind of crazy monsters.
You get to see what kind of monsters they have that they could have picked.
Yeah, with in their cubes, kind of 13 Ghosts style, which is pretty cool. You got like a gnarly looking Wolfman. Yeah. A kind of Hellraiser-ish bondage.
Yeah, he looked really like that.
Bondage dude.
Saws going through his head. Which is pretty sick.
You got some a giant boa constrictor or cobra.
Yeah.
I think it was.
The ballerina girl with like faces, the teeth face.
Some really cool monsters.
Yeah.
And then so they get to the bottom of the facility.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens? I think
they're like, okay, we have to separate them because we have to kill they call him the fool, who is Marty.
Mm-hmm.
And they say we have to kill the fool before we kill her, because if we kill her first, then it's all basically ruined. So the elevator opens and there's a security guard right there, and he's basically trying to separate them so he can shoot Marty. And I think the zombie that was supposed to have killed Marty, parts of him are in the elevator still.
Oh.
And it grabs onto the security guard's his hand grabs onto the security guard's foot, and the security guard freaks out, and that's when they attack him and they hit him on the head and he gets knocked out. And they take his gun and then they start to leave, and then Marty looks back at the zombie hand. He's like, "Good zombie hand," and he walks away. Yeah. And that's when they get into this kind of like an operating room, basically. And there's this big old switch that says "Purge All." And then she's like, "Let's start the party." And then she hits the switch and she presses the button, and it's basically unleashing every single thing that they have in their inventory. And you get this kind of like their SWAT, like their private security, that's coming up to capture Marty and Dana. And then they're right where the elevators are, and then you hear all the elevators go off, like kind of like ding, and then the doors start to open, and the security guard's like, "Oh fuck!" And then you see everything just shoot up from both sides, which was an intense scene.
Yeah, because it's just a gnarly bloodbath.
Yeah,
that takes place. It's something you have to rewind to watch all of it
to see all the crazy kills.
Because there's something that's impossible for your eye to catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
You have to watch sections of it.
Yeah, there's this giant robotic monster with saws and knives and stuff.
Yeah.
It's chopping people up.
Yeah, it's like an evil. What was that? What was that show where they fight with the robots?
BattleBots.
Yeah,
it was like a BattleBot gone wrong on roids.
Yeah.
And what else happened? So basically, everyone it shows all these people getting murdered, all the staff basically who's underneath getting murdered, and they're trying to basically what are they trying to do? They're trying to override the system. They're calling for backup, basically trying to contain everything. And
everybody's just
everyone's kind of scattered and running around.
Yeah, because it's chaos.
Yeah,
because there's so much stuff that's impossible to get under control.
Yeah.
And then they end up in the kind of where the ritual.
Yeah, like an old.
Place. It's like this old kind of, I don't know, where
ruins, kind of.
Yeah, and you see all of their
kind of like statues, almost
all
like
of
pillars.
their symbols and all their friends' blood, kind of symbolizing around them, and they're like, this is what it was all for. And then of course Sigourney Weaver,
she pulls up,
comes out, and she's behind it all. She's the director of everything, of this big government organization.
Yeah.
And we find out basically that they do these sacrifices to appease these
the ancient gods, ancient ones.
These ancient evil gods, because if they're not, if they don't,
get their sacrifices, they awaken basically, because
and the world as we know it will end.
Yeah,
they will inhabit the earth and destroy it. So there's a big, basically she tries to talk them into killing themselves for humanity.
Yeah.
And of course they're like, well, or Marty's like, well, fuck that. Maybe
our time is up.
Yeah, this is maybe that's what's supposed to happen, And then Dana gets cold feet.
Yeah.
And she's thinking about shooting him. She has the handgun.
She has the handgun and she's pointing it at Martin. He's like, "Oh, really?" He's like,
He's very disappointed.
He's like, you feel really powerful right now, don't you? And then she's like, I'm sorry, Marty. And then in the shadows behind her, you see the werewolf come up, and then really slowly,
great shot.
Yeah, and then he's like, no, Dana, I'm sorry.
And she gets gnawed on.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty vicious.
Yeah.
And he's gnawing on her, and then
Marty and Sigourney, they get into
the director get into a fist fight for the gun, and then the little girl Buckner,
the one-armed
zombie, from the very beginning comes.
She made her way down
with an axe.
Yeah,
she has an axe in hand. And she's still coming.
Yeah.
She's determined to get the kill.
Yep.
She's coming for Marty.
Yeah.
And of course, Dana tips him off, and they're tussling on the ground. So he makes sure that Sigourney, or the director's, on top of him. Yeah. And so the zombie whacks her in the head with the axe.
Yeah, and then he pushes both of them off.
Yeah,
basically.
He kicks. He looks up at the little girl and then kicks him off the edge.
Yeah,
and then they go and they have he has his moment with Dana where they kind of apologize to each other, and he lights up a J.
Yeah,
and he's like,
oh man, I guess.
She's like, I probably wouldn't have really shot you. And he's like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I like their reasoning. Marty was kind of like, man, I wish I could have been up there to see these giant, monsters. He's like, that would have been pretty awesome. And then Dana's like, yeah, that would have been one hell of a weekend. And they're like, well, I guess, this is it. And everything kind of starts crumbling around them.
Yeah, you see the boulders, and it's because they were the last two sacrifices, the fool and the virgin.
Yeah.
And there's that one little bit we forgot to mention where Sigourney says, oh, and you're the virgin. And she's like, me, a virgin?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, we work with what we have.
Yeah. I like that. That's kind of little, you gotta make lemonade out of lemons.
But yeah, that's pretty much the movie. Oh,
and you see this giant hand shoot up through the ground.
And that's the ancient one.
Yeah,
or one of them.
One of them. Yep.
And he, that symbolizes that everybody died. They, nothing's really resolved, I guess. But it's a good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Cabin in the Woods. It's nuts.
Yeah, man. And then that's when the big Cabin in the Woods title pops up, and it's all and then credits.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So you guys got to see it finally with a audience.
Yes.
And Richard, you had not seen it.
I hadn't.
I'm curious as to your reaction because I was blown away.
I was too. You must have been sitting next to me.
I was not. I saw it the day before. But,
oh, you did?
I didn't get to see it with a mass audience like you guys got. And this is a rowdy bunch. So.
It was incredible. It was incredible. That's the way you see a movie. It's just so smart. They knew everything, every reference.
They got every moment.
They got all the jokes. Right?
Yeah.
It was like.
How rare is it?
Probably they lost some because they were laughing so hard. Really.
No, there were.
Well, it's a multiple C, I think.
Yeah.
This kind of film. Now we can't really talk about it because we don't want to ruin it for people that are going to go see it. But I'm curious, how rare is it to get a script like this, and where what you read ends up on the screen? Exactly as you read it.
It's more is on the screen than what I read.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was clearly. I think Richard and I were both hesitant. It's a horror movie.
Right. Of course.
But the moment you read the script, you knew that there was something interesting. But the way they realized it exceeded what I thought you could get out of it in terms of both horror and humor.
The dialogue in the script was just so good for any genre. It was just really smart and good. But they would just hint at what was going to happen.
Right.
And it's like the script. The first page says the war begins, and then that took about 6 months to shoot. But that's kind of what this script was. I had no idea what it was going to look like or how they would realize the
well, that's even cooler when you get to see it up on the big screen. You see
it was amazing. It was amazing. Yeah.
You guys have such great chemistry. It kind of reminded me. We were talking about it last night, and we were trying to figure out. It wasn't a a Martin and Lewis kind of thing. It was more like a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid kind of vibe, you know, just because, or almost like Clooney and Pitt